Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Spiritual Spotlight series. Today, I'm joined by Peaceful Nick. She is an evidential medium who specializes in healing messages and guidance. Thank you so much for coming on the Spiritual Spotlight series. I'm really happy you're here.
Thank you for having me, Rachel. I'm glad we finally got to meet. We've had some schedule changes, but I am thrilled to be here.
Super, super excited myself. So, Nick, can you maybe share your story of how you first discovered your gift as a medium and what led you to embrace it as your life's path?
Okay, so I grew up on the scientific track. I come from a family that had some issues, and my mother was a little woo-woo, but she passed in 1986. So, I lost that connection to the woo-woo when she
Yeah,
passed. And, she read UFO books and alien books and things like that. And so I knew about all that stuff.
yeah,
But I was very adept at math and science in school. And so that's the track I followed. And for 20 years, I worked in science communication and education, which I still do part-time. And about 6 years ago or so, got a phone call from a sister of mine. I have a lot of sisters, and she said, our friend's son died. Brandon was his name. And it was sudden. And he was 25. And I had met him one time as a newborn baby. And then I moved across the country. And so, I didn't have any contact with him. But in my head, I knew claircognizantly that he passed from an overdose. I did not know what claircognizance was. And for anybody listening that doesn't know, that's a clear knowing where you know something in your head and you don't know why you know. Um, and I just kind of like, okay, that happens to me all the time. No big deal. I always know stuff. It doesn't everybody know stuff? Like it
yeah.
was a big deal to me. And then later that day, I laid down to take a nap, and within a few seconds, I could see in my mind's eye him full color, hear him talking to me, leaning in, just his head, his red sweater, his gold chain, his black hair, his full face. And he leaned in and he said, "Tell my mom I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do it." Just
Oh,
clear as a video. And I was shocked that nothing like that had ever happened to me before. I had other little weird experiences through my life, but nothing to
yeah.
this magnitude. And I sat up and I'm like, I called my sister. I go, "Oh my God, Brandon came to me in a vision." And he said, "Tell my mom I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do it." And of course, over the next few days, we found out he did pass from an overdose. And I have since, been trained and given his mother readings. Um, and that was my first real, solid,
Yeah.
verifiable experience. And I just kind of blew it off because, weird stuff happens. A few months later, my daughter-in-law's grandmother was in hospice care at home. She had had a head injury and was transitioning. And my son and daughter-in-law were there with her at the moment of her transition. And that day, I kept seeing this red heart with her name on it, just emblazoned in my mind's eye so strongly and so constantly. I couldn't, it's going to make me cry
Oh,
because I loved this woman and I couldn't get it out of my head. And I texted my son, I said, "Hey, Dottie was her name. She keeps showing me this red heart and I cannot get it to stop. I don't know what to do." And I'm standing in my kitchen. He texts me back a picture of the red heart with her name on it. And it's actually in the other room. I have it now. Um, a keychain he picked up that was on her nightstand or in the drawer of her nightstand or something right at the moment of her passing. And so my knees buckled and I almost passed out
right.
because I thought I either need a CAT scan or something crazy's
Right,
happening.
right.
Um, and so I thought, I'm a scientist. I will perform an experiment on myself because if this is real, it should be verifiable through repeated attempts,
Yeah.
right? Verifiable evidence. You had to go through all the scientific method in your nursing
Yes.
school and training. And so I found a mentor in the UK. You go to the internet, you scour the internet, and this lady just really resonated with me. She was super real. She was super matter of fact. She gave a lot of important information in a very short period of time because I was working full time. And I didn't have time for an hour-long lecture where you learn one thing. Like she gave 200 pieces of information in 10 minutes. And I,
Yeah.
wow, this one's for me. I want to learn quickly. So I signed up for her class and then I doubled up on the next class and I can't even tell you how many classes I took with her. And then she said, "You're ready to give paid readings." And I said, "Really?" Like, really? So I had a good friend who has a very large family and friend group.
Mm,
And she hooked me up with about 50 people over the period of 2 months to give free practice readings to. And I'm forever grateful to her for this
yeah.
because without all of those people giving them these practice readings, I don't know if I would have had the courage to start doing paid
Absolutely.
readings.
Yeah.
So then I started doing paid readings, and I can't tell you how nervous I was that first time because you know you have it, but you're like, but somebody's giving me money for it, and now I feel weird.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a different when you're doing an energetic exchange of money and
Yes,
when somebody is in a vulnerable state and looking for this guidance. So I think it's amazing that you did so many practice readings just because a lot of people, I don't know if a lot of people actually do that. And I think I commend you for doing that and honing your craft and your gift. I think that's
thank
amazing.
you.
So you kind of just brought this up. You studied, and if I mispronounce it, I apologize, at the Odd Bod School of Mediumship in the UK. What was
Yes.
that experience like, and how did it shape your approach to evidential mediumship?
So I did not travel to the UK for
Gotcha.
this, but it's based in the UK. It was all online, which most things are now, right? Lucky for us.
Amen.
Well, it's so good for so many reasons.
It
Um,
is.
and my mentor was excellent. She was very
Yeah.
clear. She held our feet to the fire within. Now, remember, I knew nothing about mediumship really. So my very first class within 5 minutes, she said, make a connection to spirit and give a reading. And I had no idea what to do. And I remember I saw a little girl with blonde hair and a yellow ribbon.
Mm,
And I don't remember if it belonged to anybody. I don't remember the details now, but I just remember she really, threw you in the deep end.
yeah.
And it was good for me. I needed that. And I learned so much so fast. And we did a lot, as you know, in mediumship classes, you do a lot of readings with each other. And so groups of us were in the same classes over and over, and we eventually all learned about everybody's people. And that's why it was so important to do so many readings for
Right.
other strangers that to really get prepared for
Yeah.
charging. Yeah, it was
Absolutely.
wonderful. I
No,
enjoyed.
I think that's perfect, and I like the fact that she's like, no, let's go.
Yep,
Like,
exactly.
let's go.
Exactly. And so I model a lot of my mentorship programs after how she taught because it
Right.
was so impactful. So when I'm teaching now, I make my students by the second class, I don't throw them in immediately in 5 minutes, but they do have to make a connection at some point during the first class. But
Right.
by the second class, they're doing readings,
Yeah.
whether they like it or not, because you can't learn if you don't do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. When I went through my Akashic Records training and then the healing trainings, she made us do a minimum amount of readings before we would even be considered to be certified.
Mhm.
And then you had to submit evidence of what we did. And then she did a session and witnessed us and everything before she would sign off on us. And I appreciate that because I mean, 50 sessions later, obviously, and same thing, free and whatnot. It's like, then you had to trust it. You're like, okay, I'm just going to
Right.
do it.
Exactly. And it can be nerve-wracking. I have
Yeah.
a note on my desk. I was watching a podcast with I think Kim Russo, I think.
Hmm.
She said, leave your ego at the door because I used to get a lot of anxiety before reading.
Yes.
And she said that anxiety is your ego.
Right.
Really struck me. And I have this little note. It says, leave your ego at the door, stop thinking, allow the flow. If you doubt, spirit senses that. And so
That's
I'm sure you're
perfect.
the same. We're always learning. We don't just
Absolutely.
finish classes and we're the best.
No.
You know, we always have to continue to learn and
Right.
get information. And it's good to get information from several sources, not just from
Absolutely.
one source. Because, not everybody's going to be right all the time.
So very true. So very true. So you describe yourself as an evidential medium. For those who may be new to that term, how does that differ from other types of mediumship?
So, evidential medium really appealed to me because of science, evidence-based mediumship. So, in my readings, and it's probably the same for all of them, and this may be splitting hairs for different types of mediumship, but I provide evidence that cannot, it's something that's not going to be on social media,
Mm,
something that, is not going to be in the newspaper or in an obituary, some detail that is not obvious, that is evidence that only the sitter or client and
yeah.
I and spirit would know. And I only know because spirit tells me or shows me in
Right,
some.
right.
So, if there's, 20 pieces of evidence in a reading, great. But if they're all like, Grandma loved you and gave you Christmas presents, that's not really evidence that is striking
Right.
because, most, not all, most grandmas love their grandkids and give them presents. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. The evidence has to be something detailed and specific
Mm.
that is not obvious.
Absolutely. I like evidential mediumship because it's pulling the pieces together to really help validate that yes, you've connected to this loved one in spirit and you're bringing, like you said, almost like scientific evidence. Like it's not just saying like Rachel, no, your grandma this. It's like no, your grandma gave you this quilt that has the pink and the white and the squares
Right.
and I like that.
Details, detail,
Yeah.
and odd things. One reading I was giving, I kept seeing a tornado, and I'm like, this is weird. Why am I seeing a tornado? Because you have your own inner dialogue when you
Yeah.
do readings. And I said, your husband is showing me a tornado. Do you understand the significance of a tornado? And she said, like 20 years ago, he rescued a bunch of people from passing in a tornado. Now there's no way
There's
I
no way you're not
know
gonna
that.
know that. You're
Yeah.
never gonna know that. I thought
So
you were going down the Wizard of Oz like
no,
track.
no, that would have been cool.
I was like, wow. I did. The only reason why I say that is because I just went to visit my sister and I bought my niece a little pair of red shoes. And
Oh,
I was like, oh, that's where she's going. They're so random. That's so cool that he did that.
yeah,
I love that.
it was
So
awesome.
that's so cool. So, what is your intention when delivering messages from the spirit world? And how do you ensure these messages bring healing and clarity to your clients?
So you may have to repeat the second part.
Sure.
My intention is always do no harm
Mm,
and help people start or continue their healing journey.
yeah.
It's, I guess the Hippocratic Oath is do
Yeah.
no, you would know that better than I would as a nurse. Um, I don't want to cause harm ever.
Yeah.
And I always want my clients to feel better after
Mm,
reading. And I don't have a situation where someone felt worse, but some people are in deep grief. And
yes.
as a healer, you don't know what stage of grief people are in when they sign up.
Absolutely.
So anybody could show up. Somebody who's happy, somebody who's crying. You don't know what's going to happen when that screen opens. And so it's imperative that if somebody's in deep grief, to always recommend grief counseling,
Mm,
therapy, something else, because I'm not a therapist.
right.
And I'm, very good at giving people advice and guidance, but there is a point where someone is in deep grief that they
Yeah.
may need other help.
I think though, for those of us that are in this spiritual realm, like going to a medium and connecting to someone like yourself and bringing about like a healing, a reading from that loved one that they lost, I do think that there is a space for mediumship in that healing journey.
1,000,000%,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it is, and I was, that's just my disclaimer. Like,
Oh,
I'm
I
not,
100% agree with you. Yeah. And like hospice does free grief counseling. Like, yes, 100% agree
Exactly.
with you. But I guess I was just giving space to the fact that, like, I know that one of my really close loved ones passed. And I'm like, yeah, I should get a mediumship reading. Like, that will help me with that grieving process.
Absolutely. Because it's good for the living person
Yeah.
for their own connection with their own mortality. I think
Yes.
it's a big part of it because I think we fear our own mortality. I
Mm.
think we fear what if there is nothing? That was my big fear my whole life
Oh,
until I
that's a,
became a medium. I
yeah.
wasn't scared of physical death. I was scared, what if nothing happens after I die? Like I had panic attacks for
Wow.
years. I mean, wake up in the middle of the night, yelling panic attacks, like grabbing my husband's leg and screaming at 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
And that's not good, right?
No, it's not good, but it's interesting that that's what kind of that was like one piece in your journey. And then, well, let's ask you this then. So, what is your perspective now on the afterlife?
So now I don't have those panic attacks anymore, which I didn't even realize they stopped when I became a when I started my mediumship training, they stopped, which
Wow.
is incredible. Um, and now because of the tens of thousands of pieces of evidence over the past 6 years, I can't, there's no count really. I know now that the spirit world is where all of our souls, consciousness, spirit, however we want to define it, kind of plugs back into the collective consciousness
Mm,
and is there in association with our soul families, our soul groups. And basically, it's an orb of energy. Our soul's like an orb of energy, and we can telepathically communicate and manifest whatever we want.
I love that. I love that. So, have there been moments where a reading deeply surprised you or moved you to something that maybe changed your own perspective about your own life or even the afterlife?
Well, all of them collectively have changed my perspective of the
Mm.
afterlife. I grew up Catholic, so
Do you have the Catholic guilt?
I did for a very, very, very long time. Because of these readings, it
Mm,
solidified my belief that there's no hell,
mm,
there's no evil spirits.
love that.
There's when souls or spirits are coming into our physical space and flickering a light or knocking over kids' toys,
Hmm.
they're not there to harm.
Mm,
They're there to just get our attention and say, "Hey, I'm here. I'm just trying to communicate with you."
yeah.
Um, and so my perspective on the afterlife, it's so solid now when before it was very weak. It was very,
Mm,
and science, of course, allows for weakness in belief in the afterlife, right?
yeah.
But one of the biggest things now for me is I use my scientific background. I read a lot
Mm,
of quantum physics and, quantum mechanics. One of the biggest things that I've been trying to do is say science proves mediumship is real. So I have series on my social media about that, and I talk about it all the time. And I don't know that physicists know they're proving that we have a soul that is made of energy, but they are proving that
yes.
whether they know it or not. And
Hmm.
so that's a big shift for me
Mm,
in my belief systems overall.
I love that. I love that so much. So you offer a wide range of services from one-on-one readings to workshops and mentorships.
Yes.
Which do you feel is maybe one of your ways to connect? Like which one, I guess they probably all give you excitement and joy, but is there one that gives you more joy than the others?
Wow. I would say it's a tie between my mentorships. I love seeing a student. I have a student right now who knew nothing about mediumship at all. And she got a one-on-one reading with me. And she said at the end, she said, "Can I ask you some questions?" And she asked me a series of questions about events that have happened in her life. She sees spirits. She experiences voices and so much information in that small conversation. I said, "Do you know you're probably a medium?" And she grew up with religious dogma, very
Wow.
very strict evangelical religious
Mm.
dogma. And so she was scared to explore it. And I said, listen, meet with me next week and we'll talk, we'll have a longer conversation. And then she booked a one-on-one class because I offer one-on-one and mentorships with groups, small groups. And she had a one-on-one, and I said, you are more than welcome. I just had a class start. You're more than welcome to join that class. And the class I have right now, it's wrapping up the first 6 months of it, but they're like on high speed, like they're all like super
Wow.
advanced beginners. And she went from knowing nothing about mediumship to by her second class doing readings with strangers I invited in because
Yeah.
you got to throw them out there. And I mean, I knew the people, they didn't know the
Right.
people. And so she gives these incredible readings, and she's been doing this for 4 months of her life.
Wow.
And that was profound. And that is beautiful because when I was in traditional science education, those days are gone where a teacher or professor gets this, oh, wow, these kids really get it. Those days are very limited now because
Mm.
technology, education system, blah, blah, blah.
Hmm.
But in these classes where I teach adults mediumship, the change from day one to day, 150 is incredible. That how fast they grow, change, connect, and their awareness of spirit and how it changes their perspective on
Mm.
other humans
Yeah.
and life.
I
And
love
it,
that.
I love it.
I love
And,
that.
and the readings, the one-on-one readings, when you have somebody who's deeply grieving and you give them a bunch of evidence
Mm.
that proves their loved one in spirit is still there. I had a mother who lost a son, and the mother just passed recently. So, say a moment for Lori.
Yeah.
Uh, and her son kept showing me a wallet, and he was smelling the wallet. And it had dollar bills and a little silver metal thing in it, not a coin, but a metal thing with a circle on it. And she said, now these are things, there's no way I could know.
Yeah, of course.
She had no sense of smell, so her son smelled everything for her. She still had his wallet. She sent me a picture of it with his dollar bills in it and a little metal tool of some sort with a circle on it. And
Wow.
there's no way, so those are things when, and she was so relieved
Mm.
to know her son's soul still exists and can communicate that and
Yeah.
say, look, mom, I'm safe.
Yeah.
That was in mediumship, those are some of my favorite things.
I love that. So your offerings are very accessible in terms of price and structure.
Yes.
How important is it to make spiritual tools and readings available to everyone?
It is extremely important because I grew up as a child in a low socioeconomic status.
Mm.
And we struggled for regular things, necessities. And to me, I don't need to charge 700 or $1,000 for a reading to make myself feel better. I'm fancier if I charge more. I want healing to occur for as many people as possible. And there are a
Nice.
lot of people struggling right now more than ever.
Right.
And it's important that I offer my services at a lower price in order to help as many people heal as possible.
That's commendable. I love that. I
Thank
think
you.
it's so amazing. I was like, oh, her rates are really good.
Yeah.
Really amazing rates. Can you maybe share a story about a client transformation that reminded you of why this work is so sacred and needed?
Oh boy, let me see. I would say the student I was referring to
Mm.
earlier who was gripped in fear and getting a lot of pushback from her family and telling her she was weird. You're
Aw.
weird. You're a weirdo because
Yeah.
you see these things or feel these things and you shouldn't talk about that. It's not in the Bible said da 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 da. You're
Yeah.
talking to demons. Those are demons, And when I see her in class now, her energy is so much brighter and higher, and
I
she's
love
so
that.
happy. Than when I first met her, she
Oh,
was drugged down
yeah.
because she was having all these experiences and didn't know what to do with them. And now she's like, especially because she's in a group with other students
Yeah.
who all have the same experiences. And
Right.
so it's almost like group therapy,
Right. We see
right?
each
When,
other. Yeah.
yeah, you're like, oh, you see dead people too. Oh, okay. So it's not just me. And
Right.
then
Right.
you connect them with other mediums and training and other developed mediums. And those are the things that are so impactful to me. Like,
Oh,
oh, you changed from this person who was scared and sad and upset
yeah.
to this person who's relieved and happy and joyful.
I love that. You have a new show that is coming out with one of your BFFs. Can you please tell us a little bit about it?
Yes, thank you for asking. I have a new podcast being released May 23rd on Spotify and all other platforms.
Woo-hoo.
It is called the Soul Twin Stars podcast with myself, Peaceful Nick the Medium, and Lady Shadow. She's a white witch, and I'm a medium and a scientist. And our first episode is our origin story and how to change your life in 1 second through
Wow.
manifesting. And it gives details of how to manifest things,
Yeah.
set your intention, do the work, and allow yourself to receive. That's the shorthand version of
I
that.
love
And
that.
we're very excited about it.
Yeah, I like the idea of blending mediumship with the white witch way. I think that's going to be a really amazing, interesting show to tune into.
Yeah,
And
and
that's so
because
cool.
and it's not so polished because, it's a podcast, so there will be some sensitive subjects. We're going to
Of
talk
course.
about female body things,
Yeah.
menopause, changes in male body things, changes
Hmm.
in the male body. Um, Everything from awakening to Zen will be
Nice.
discussed on the podcast, and we will have guests as
Yeah.
well.
That's awesome. That's gonna be really cool. I really like that. It's gonna be fun.
I'm excited.
So before I ask you the last question, where is the best place for anyone that's looking to get a reading, maybe taking a mentorship class with you, and you offer a lot of cool services? Where's the best place for them to go to?
peacefulnickthemedium.com. Nick is spelled Nik, or you can email me peacefulnickthemedium@gmail.com. And I also just want to mention
Sure.
briefly, if someone is interested in a mentorship, but they're not really ready to commit,
Hmm.
I have a sale on my digital download workbook, which is the equivalent of my 6-month beginner's mediumship. And it's only $27. You can click
Wow.
a button on my website, it comes straight to your inbox, easy peasy. Then you can explore it on your own and say,
Right.
is she for me? Is this for me? And
Yeah.
go from there.
I love that. Oh, that's so cool. That's
Yeah.
cool. And that's a great price, $27. Hello, score.
I have a hard copy here. You can get it on Schmamazon, but I prefer you get it off my website. This is
I
the
like
course.
that.
It has exercises, information, journal prompts.
Oh, that's so
Yeah,
cool.
it's really cool. And
That's
so,
awesome.
yeah,
I'm like, I want one. I'm gonna order one. I am.
I'll send you one right after this. I'll email you.
Oh, you're so
It's a
nice.
digital download. I'll email it to you.
You're so nice.
Oh, thank you.
So, for listeners who feel drawn to explore their own spiritual gifts but don't know where to start, what's one simple and powerful step they can take today to begin that journey?
Meditate.
What if they can't meditate?
Everybody can meditate. I'm going to tell you a secret about meditating. My friend who gave me all the 50 people to do the practice,
Yeah.
she was trained at the Chopra Center, and she's a Reiki master and all of those things. How I didn't become a medium years ago with all these friends in the woo-woo, I have no idea.
Yes, I
What
know.
happened? This is what happened. And she taught me that meditation isn't about sitting in a perfect Zen
Mm,
position and clearing your mind perfectly because that's too stressful.
yeah.
You can't meditate. I'm a terrible meditator, but you can be in the present moment. When you're washing the dish, you're thinking about washing the dish. When you're
Mm,
folding the towel, you're thinking about folding the towel.
yeah.
In the shower, you're thinking about putting the soap on your hair. When you're walking the dog, you're thinking about the grass along the sidewalk. Being in the present moment
Yeah.
is a form of meditation, and you don't have to perfectly clear your mind. So when you're doing any daily task, it doesn't matter what it is,
Mm,
focus on that task. I'm writing a note with a pen. And,
right.
and so the purpose of meditation is to stop the hamster wheel of thoughts.
Yes.
When you have that hamster wheel of thoughts, you can't create or
Mm,
connect. And I think maybe that's why it was in my late 40s before I became a medium, because my kids were very busy,
yes.
sports, my husband's a coach, I was running around, working, blah, blah, blah. But then when they were grown, that's when it hit me. So I wasn't having to take my kids anywhere or be
Yeah.
responsible for them anymore, mostly. So yeah, meditation just slow down the train of thought.
Love that. Love that. Well, thank you, Peaceful Nick, the medium. It's truly been amazing to connect with you today. I look forward to everything that's coming out for you. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it, and I look forward to hearing the episode.